I think a lot of times we like to we like to externalize things like, oh, the reason why I'm like this is because of so and so. Or, and I think once we begin to accept our whole self, as you've been saying, I think that's when the real healing and the whole person can really emerge. And I think when you try to avoid the negative, right? So when you try to avoid the gnarly bits, you actually, in a way, become more attached to them, right? Because you're trying so hard to run away from them that they almost have this, I don't know, like almost like this demonic pull, right? It's like the
Yes.
self-fulfilling prophecy, like I am not my mother. And then of course you find yourself speaking exactly like your mother, right? So
So true.
can
So
you
true.
expand a little bit on that? Like why it's important for us to lean into some of those, parts of us that maybe we feel shame around, that we want to hide, or even more broadly, just uncomfortable experiences, things that where we are unsure, we're putting ourselves in an environment where we cannot predict the outcome, why that's essential for our growth as humans.
Oh boy. Oh, Abraham Maslow, one of my favorite psychologists, probably my favorite psychologist. Who are we kidding? My favorite psychologist. I wrote a whole book about him called Transcend.
Yeah.
Um, he says, so I'm going to paraphrase him, but he says we can stay in this fear, or we can move forward in growth. And we have to constantly make that choice. We have to constantly choose the growth option again and again, and overcome the fear response again and again. That process is never over. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to keep actively and intentionally doing that. And sometimes that means putting us in situations that we do fear, and and trying to overcome the fear response, or reframe the fear response into something more positive. If you're about to give like a big talk and you're scared of public speaking, this feeling of nerves is actually excitement, and just reframe what you're feeling. It takes a lot of work, to do cognitive reframing, to do emotional regulation skills, but it's really worth it, because if you don't put yourself in those situations, you won't grow. You can absolutely stay in your safe zone your entire life, and that's fine. I mean, everyone chooses to do what they want to do, but if you really do want to grow as a whole person, and gain greater depths of meaning in your life, you're going to have to go out and on a limb and choose options that may cause heartache, pain, suffering, but on the other side of all of that will be really deep joy and
Yeah, and
meaning.
I think it's also your interpretation too. So like the
Mm.
example of getting up on stage, like if your heart's racing, your brain is just sort of like a pattern recognition. It's like, oh, the heart's racing. That must mean fear. That must mean stress physiology. That must mean there's a tiger, versus, reframing it like you just said very quickly, but I think it's worth just kind of staying there for a moment. Maybe it's actually excitement, but you do need to put just a little bit of space between the very quick reaction that the brain's like, heart racing, mouth is dry, you are scared, run away, versus, oh, but I'm about to help someone in the audience. I'm about to, go and give some value to people that, maybe can benefit from what I have to say. So I think that there's a little bit of just also recognizing that your brain, how do I say this, is not always working in your best interest. Like it's just
Yes.
kind of going on past experiences, like heart racing, or, thousands of years of, not living in modern society where you may have a racing heart, or, that, like I was saying, that stress physiology that's causing you to, that fight or flight system.
Yeah. Yeah. I should be interviewing you.
Gosh, no. Okay, so
Well,
let's,
the
yeah.
fight or flight, I want to just yes and that. Fight or flight is one system, but often we don't talk about the calm and connect system, which also exists.
Mhm.
And they are at odds with each other, but if we can lean into when our fight and flight is, if to the extent to which we can lean into a connection and a curiosity to what we're experiencing, we can actually activate a different system. So,
Yeah. I can share the first time that I stood up on stage and I was about to give a speech. I had the
yes,
same. I was nervous. I couldn't talk to
you,
anyone. I was so nervous. I wanted to cry. I wanted to run away.
Miss
Everything in my
Stephanie.
body. Yeah, I wanted to get out of there. The only reason why I got up on stage was there was 1,500 people in the audience. And I said, okay, if 1,499 hate what I have to say, but there's just one person that just needed part of what I have to, part of what I have to share, then my job is done. Like I've won. And I
Beautiful.
think, yeah, so when I took it away from me, like it's all about me. I'm scared. What if they don't like me? What if I fall on my face? What if I trip up? What if my heel breaks? All of that stuff. When I switched it from being about me to being about them, like being in service to the people that I was about to speak to, that for some reason, and I don't know why, but that I've always done that. When I am about to get up on stage and I'm nervous, I always think about, let me make it all about them. And then it actually doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter if I mess up, if I, I don't know, don't have the right clothes or don't have the right word or I mess up my talk. Like as
Yeah.
long as I am doing, someone is finding value in it, then
Love
I've
it.
won. Yeah.
Well, that's the right. I mean, that's the way. That's the way. That's helpful. And it looks like you've really discovered that. But that's a real problem with vulnerable narcissism, which I talk about in my book as well, which is a topic I've studied for many years. Is that we get so neurotically caught up in our own pain and suffering that it becomes all about us, and we miss out on the moments for connection that could happen if we just got our focus outside of ourselves a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And so how would you recommend someone begin to, what's the right word, like inoculate themselves? Like, what are some ways that we can like slowly expose ourselves without being like, hey, I'm just going to get up in front of like 2,000 people and give a talk. Like maybe that's overwhelming for someone. But what are some small ways that we can begin to push the boundaries of our comfort zone? What are some, maybe habits, strategies, thinking processes where we can begin to lean into an uncomfortable experience and think about our feelings, feel our feelings, and begin to sort of work through maybe fears that we have? I know you were talking about, I think it was your fear of flying, was it, in the book? I believe you were.
Yeah, I overcame that.
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot there. I obviously wrote a whole book about it, and and I also don't believe in quick fixes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
hey Scott,
Yeah.
give me the one sentence thing to solve everything you just said.
Right.
It's a whole journey. It's a
Yeah.
whole journey. My book is divided into a whole section of all the things we become victim to inside ourselves. See, the thing is, most people, when you think about a victim mindset, you think of, oh, it's all the fault of the outside world. But I talk about how you can be a victim to your emotions, for instance. That's an internal victimhood. So that's like where you take your emotions at face value and you don't create any distance with them. You are your emotions, and therefore you must act on whatever you're feeling. So if you're sad, that means you are sad. That if you automatically don't create any distance, but you automatically become a slave to your emotions, I consider that having a victim mindset with your emotions. So it's kind of like a little twist on things. And I go through the list. I go through your self-esteem. You can become a victim to your self-esteem when you must always feel good about yourself. If you're at the mercy of that, like you're not going to learn and grow. It's okay to have a low self-esteem sometimes. It's okay to have moments. You don't want to live there. But I'm saying you don't, I'm more concerned about the person who, regardless of the feedback and the consequences of their actions and others, they always have a high self-esteem. I'm worried about those people.
Right. It's like the making of I don't know how you feel about the word narcissist, or it's like almost like a madman. It's like, how could you,
Yeah,
or like almost like a psychopath in a way, right? It's like if you have no...
Agreed. Psychopath, yeah.
Yeah, if there's no sort of ebb and flow, I mean, we're all going to feel good about ourselves. Like after that talk, I was elated. I was so proud of myself, and I got off the stage. I was like, okay, I'll definitely do that again. And then I had, good response from the audience too, which was really validating.